And you guys thought I only simped for Mayco, didn't you? That's right, we have secured yet another glaze company on the Dirty Potter team. Before we start this video, I want to give a huge shout out to Mayco for sponsoring this video. We're most likely going to do a number of glaze tests and glaze reviews with whatever they sent us in this box, and there will also be a link to these products down in the description below. There's 3 companies that I really like, and when I didn't know how to make glaze, I essentially only bought their glazes, and this was one of them. Mayco is a top name ever since I was a young warthog. I'm gonna open the box up with scissors this time. See, I'm learning. I'm becoming more mature. Usually we would do this with a pin tool, and I would complain when I have a good pair of scissors right next to me. Oh, this must be from their new micro line. I'll be honest with you, the majority of companies that send me glazes and swag and stuff like that, they tell me what's in the box, but they always include something more than what's in the box. I thought they were gonna send us these little kind of like micro pints. I don't know if you've ever seen those in the wild, but they sent us the big ones, and I'm quite happy about that because I do love to pour my glaze on. Let's see what we have here. We have Mirco Pearl, Micro Ash, Micro Cerulean. I'm so sure I said that name wrong. Ooh, that's nice. Micro Champagne Poppy. And lastly, Micro Jade. Here's the crazy thing about Mayco colors, and I don't know if any other glaze manufacturers work this way, but I do know that the last couple of times I went to Inseca, they've had a wall of test styles that look like a bunch of teardrops. They look like something else too, but we're just gonna say teardrops because this is, yeah. That shows you a low fire, a 5-6 fire, or like a cone 6 fire, and then it also shows you a cone 10 fire on the back. So I don't know what they're doing with their glazes. I have no actual idea as far as a chemistry point of view, but I do know that a good portion of their glazes can be used at cone 10 and cone 6. I have no idea why. From a glaze maker's point of view, when I make a glaze, I make it for a specific cone, and then usually there's some wiggle room. So if I make a cone 5 glaze, it can go to cone 6 or 7. But usually I don't play with cone 6 glazes and fire them to cone 10. So I have no idea if my glazes can do that, and I've just not tested them in that manner because I don't test in that manner. But a lot of the Mayco glazes can go to cone 10, surprisingly. I think, if my editor can find it, I think I still have a test style from Inseca where one of the Mayco representatives gave me a tile and it was the same glaze on the front and back. The only difference is that one was cone 6 and one was cone 10. And the wall behind him was also the same thing. There was a bunch of glazes that were cone 6 and the same exact glazes of different color variations were also cone 10. So I will say if you work at the cone 10 range, give these a try. I bet they work. You know, because this is the only one with an OK sign for the food safety sticker on it, we're gonna use Mirco Pearl first. We're gonna start off with the Mirco Pearl here, mainly because it's one of the few ones that are food safe. Of course, we have to have our brush test style, our white test style, and our dark clay body brown test style. For extra points, I have put a little picture on the brown or darker redstone test style here. I don't know why I did that, I just felt like it. Okay, and as we usually do, let's talk about what we're putting inside of the kiln before we put it in. This is a brushed on porcelain planter pot that I made quite some time ago. I followed the instructions to a T on this one. This is 3 coats from the top to the bottom. I left a good amount of clearance at the bottom so it doesn't stick. I don't know how runny this glaze is yet. So almost all of these pots are gonna have a little bit of space at the very foot of the pot so that just in case it runs, I don't wanna come into all of these pots being super runny. I might even stilt 1 or 2 of them just in case. But this, either way, is our porcelain test style. This here is our red stone or red clay test style. This one here is also brushed on. It does have a lid to it, which I generally fire separately, but this one's a little special just because it does have a silk screen with underglaze on it, black underglaze. And I want to see if that underglaze comes through without melting or running whatsoever. I really want to test how stable this glaze is. So this will be a good test on 2 fronts. This here, as we do in Dirty Potter fashion, is a poured on test style. This is B mixed with grog. I didn't even trim the bottom. This was born to be a tester. So this is completely poured on. Usually when I pour on glazes, it's about 4.5 to 5 coats instead of 3. So this is an extra thick poured on variation. Now these two here are my combination glaze. Oh, it's still wet. This here is the Mirco Pearl with Randy's Red on the very top. I did glaze it while it was still a little wet. That is my mistake, so it might be a little extra thick at the top. You can clearly see that the glaze is kind of pulling away from itself because I glazed it technically incorrectly, although in my experience, it doesn't really taint the results. This has about 5 layers because I did a good old 3 layer, and then we did Randy's Red on the very top, just in case it runs, because generally speaking, when you layer glazes more than like 4 or 5, they're probably gonna run. And with that being said, let's put them in the kiln. Okay, now that everything's out of the kiln, let's take a look. Ooh, wait,
oh no!
On. Those are experiments. You're not supposed to see those yet. Move the camera over. First, let's take a look at our white clay test style. Ooh, that's good. That is good. You know, sometimes companies send me glazes and they name things that I'm like, we could have had a better name on that, right? This is named exactly how it ought to be named. It is a micro crystal glaze that looks a bit pearlescent. It is Mirco Pearl. It makes 100% sense. And even with my kiln load, and I just fire it to a straight cone 6 and then I let my stuff drop off. I don't often hold a slow cool cycle whenever I'm doing tests for you. I just do it for my own work. But even then, I got some really good crystal development here, right? This is fantastic. And I'm noticing, because I've been testing about 3 or 4 of these glazes by this point, that anywhere where the glaze pools, you get a lot more crystallization than you normally would on a clean clay body. So I did these on a couple of plates as well, which I'll show you probably another week in another video, and I got some beautiful results with these. So texture works really well with these micro glazes. Next, let's take a look at our dragon fruit clay body, because very often my dragon fruit clay body ends up making extra specks in the glaze matrix, and sometimes it turns out really good, sometimes it turns out bad. But in this case, it turned out fantastic. Ooh, it looks so good, and the consistency is there as well. That's one of the things I look for whenever I'm testing glazes from companies, and you can really see the difference in between the dragon fruit clay body and the white clay body. This one looks a bit cleaner, a bit less bluish, has way more crystallization on it. This one seems to have more streaks, if that makes sense, and that's just because the dragon fruit clay body is near a porcelain that just has a little bit extra flavor in it. You can see those little dots, and that's what dragon fruit looks like on a raw clay body, essentially. But as far as these little specks here, this is just coming from the clay body itself. It's not coming from the glaze. But keep in mind, even this slight change in clay body makes a world of difference. This one looks a bit more blue, has streaks in it, and this one is more of a pure artifact. Okay, now here comes the bad news. These glazes do not like red stone or any type of iron in your clay body whatsoever. These are the two that we did for the tester, being the brush and the dip, although they came out essentially the exact same way. If I were to guess, this one's probably the dip one because it has many more little pits in it than this one does, and usually that's a sign of overglazing or boron or something. There's a bunch of things that cause pits like this. There's like 4 or 5 things, but regardless, this glaze does not like a red or an iron like clay body. If you have contaminants in your clay body, such as manganese dioxide, or you have redstone, or just stay away from it. Just use it on white stoneware or porcelain clay bodies. I also had a clay body that was somewhere in between the two of white and redstone clay body, and it was kind of this dirtier clay body, but it wasn't completely clean, and it really tried. I'm telling you, this glaze gave it its all. You can really see where the glaze tried, but in comparison to the white stoneware or even the porcelain or dragon fruit clay bodies, the comparison is just this is an actual micro crystal glaze. This is kind of just a glaze that looks like you threw a bunch of zinc at it and called it a day, and this does not look good to me. Some of you might like this for maybe like a zombie effect. It's not on my wheelhouse though, unfortunately. As far as a stable micro crystal glaze, this did fantastic. I'm telling you, the work it did on my pieces are great. I will continue to use this glaze and buy it from Mayco. But as far as putting it on a redstone clay body for Renaissance fairs and things the like, because I usually get earthier clay bodies for those things, I would not use it on any redstone or mixed red iron clay body whatsoever. It does not come out as advertised at that point. I also did a small stoneware cup with the Mirco Pearl glaze on it as well. You see, that's what I wanted. That's really what I was looking for. You see these little bursts of crystal right here? That's what I was hoping for. And I did get these all over the cup itself. And granted, this is technically just a stoneware. This isn't even a porcelain clay body. I looked over at this and I even see the little bits of stoneware grog in there. So I'm pretty sure this is a stoneware clay body. Now granted, it did run a little bit, and we kind of knew that was going to happen because this up here is either Randy's Red or Ron Roy's High Gloss Black. I do want to be clear about this. This is technically a runny glaze, as most crystal glazes are rather runny, especially when you get them out of the bottle. That being said, this is kind of my fault. I added 2 runny glazes together and they ran a lot. So this could have been easily mitigated if I used a more stable glaze with this crystalline glaze. But just as a slight example, because I love when this happens with glazes, this looks almost tit for tat like the glaze bottle itself. I see some light blue here, I see some light blue here. I see some crystallization in the texture right here, I see some crystallization right here. I'm getting exactly what the bottle promised me, and I didn't even use a pure clay body. I'm pretty sure this is some type of recycled stoneware clay body because I'm using it as a test, and I got fantastic results from it. So Mayco is doing me good right now. And I know we've already seen this one as well, but it even came out true to its nature on the porcelain test style that we made a planter pot in. Look, it promises me crystals, it gives me crystals, and they're not in one place, they're all over the entire body. Well, thank you, Dirty Potters, for joining me today for the review of Mirco Pearl from the Mayco company. An interesting note about this is you can technically take it higher than cone 6, as the instructions do say on the back, and I am massively pleased with this glaze. Its only downfall is that it doesn't work on a redstone clay body, but like what crystal glazes do look good on a redstone clay body, you know? Like, not even the one that I developed looks that great on like a super iron saturated clay body. So I'm not taking any points off there. But as far as the stability goes, it's fantastic. It didn't run whatsoever, and the places where it did kind of congeal and gather up together made even more crystals at the bottom. So I'm really happy with this glaze. Thank you for joining me for this glaze review, and a big shout out to Mayco once again for giving us these glazes. If you want to see these glazes for yourself from the website, I will put a link down below to where you can buy some of these. Good luck on your next art projects, and I will see you, Dirty Potters, next week.
Thank you for your patronage.